Hello everybody, Lake Station Community Advocate and Educator back again. I got something that's going to be a little bit different, and it's going to be a little bit out of seeing what's going to seem like left field, but it's really close to home in our community, and it happens often in other communities. And feel free not to take my word, but I encourage you to, take some notes, have some listening ears, pencil and paper, and I hope that you're ready to learn something, because this is going to be something new, and it's going to be on Stockholm Syndrome, and I may even touch on fawning syndrome a little bit, but this is going to be on Stockholm Syndrome. And you're probably asking yourself, what does that have anything to do with community advocacy and education? What does that have to do with our community in general? Well, I'm going to get to that, and it's probably going to be a 3 or a 4-part series. This is part 1 of Stockholm Syndrome, so stay with me on this, and like I said, take some notes, because you may just learn something. You probably have some questions as, what is Stockholm Syndrome, or why and how does it relate to our community and its leadership? Or how does a community get this crazy sounding syndrome? And it happens, right? But I'm going to go through this. So the definition of it is basically it's a psychological response. It's kind of like a phenomenon when it's in communities, but it's a psychological response where victims are they are abused, or they begin to develop a sense of feeling, apathy, attachment, even sympathy, or even love towards those people that are abusing them. And yes, this can mean someone that's kidnapped, somebody that's within leadership, who's may have threatened you, or it could be it's not off limits to any human being. And how does it relate to community? Like I said, and it happens in small communities, usually close knitted, selected communities usually, and it happens with selected members where they're within the same group or social in-grouping, as you can please go research, where they're doing the same group thinking patterns, okay? And usually it could be like relatives, it could be neighbors, it could be supporters, it could be people who have slowly become henchmen or cronies, businesses. No one is off limits to this Stockholm Syndrome. And obviously Stockholm is in, it's in Sweden. That's where it originated from. But it creates it's coupled with things like gossip and verbal abuse or verbal attacking. It is coupled with judgment that creates this sort of system of pressure on those that are outside the social group. And they eventually become isolated, and it's usually towards those who don't agree with them. Like, say, if I'm a mayor and somebody don't agree with me, I'm going to figure out a way to fire you. I'm going to figure out a way to make you look bad because I'm doing such a great job and you're talking against me, so I want you to look bad. Now, I mentioned social grouping and group thinking. You should probably go research those two things, what social groups are and what group thinking is and how those relate and how those can relate within communities. But I'm going to go over real quick some of the elements that are within Stockholm Syndrome. Basically, it's called intense scrutiny, and here's what intense scrutiny is. It is what it is. It's intense. It could be very fast. It could be acute. It could be scrutiny. We all know what scrutiny is, right? But in small communities, individuals basically are led as victims where they're basically taught how to minimize, or how they're taught to deny or even reduce the amount of the abuse that they are that's happening to them. Maybe they're being ostracized, completely just cut off from their group because of some of the judgment that they're going to receive. So basically, these individuals get an opportunity to try to be a part of things, but because of a lot of the scrutiny, because they're not truly a part of this said group of acceptance, they are slowly ostracized, or they are slowly cut off and they actually will separate themselves because of the judgment. So they just altogether don't want to be a part of it. There are things like social pressures, and here's what we mean by social pressures. We all know what peer pressure is in classroom. We all know what peer pressure is when we were growing up. Come on, man, don't be a chicken, don't be this, don't be that, right? We all know how that goes. Now, no one wants to speak up in social pressures. No one wants to speak up against who the abusers are. So basically, out of fear of repercussions, they will keep quiet. And because of they're keeping quiet, they're actually feeding the abusive leadership and allows them to conform exactly what's going on. So because of that pressure and because of that, the fear of repercussions, they actually will conform to the said group and group thinking. And it's so weird because, you would assume if you know morally and ethically that this is wrong, why would you want to be a part of that group? And that only gives the abusers and that said group more power to control and to silence those that are being abused and those that are going to be controlled through the mechanism of Stockholm Syndrome. Now, they just want to appease and to praise the abuser, the person who's abusing them, which makes it kind of tough for them as an individual to even speak up. Because now you're a part of that said group, and because of some of the mechanisms, you don't want to be ostracized from the group. You don't want to feel like you're an outsider. So you agree with everything and you accept the abuse that's happening to you. Isolation. Isolation is another thing. Isolation is basically, you agree with me, otherwise I cut you off from the others outside this group. It's basically anybody who's reaching out for help that's outside that group and you're inside that group and you're the one being abused and you're reaching for help and you're reaching for those sorts of things, who are trying to help you, inform you, and even try to educate you, those that are being abused are the ones that are those other people, they will be cut off from having any contact with the abused. The abuser just wants to completely control every mechanism. And we see this in kidnappings, bank robberies, and a lot of these things. Now, access to the outside input, the information, communication, it's completely sheared off. Only the abusers, their ideas, their suggestions, and their input is allowed. No one else is allowed to have their freedom. Now, there's two more on here. It's going to be fear of separation, and we all know what that can do to a person, and how things can be maximized that are manufactured as good things by the abuser and their supporters and those within their said social groups. They will do everything to make the abuser to look like they are being great, they are awesome, they're amazing. And sometimes the fear of separation, of being out of that, I want to be a part of that. Everybody wants to be a part of something important. But remember, something's going on here. It's called Stockholm Syndrome. And what is it? Well, basically, you are being abused. And eventually, in time, you come to actually protect, encourage. You give the abuser more of the ability to abuse you and others. So in my next video, I'm going to go over fear of separation and the maximization of the manufactured good things of the abuser and what those things look like. And I may touch on what's called fawning syndrome. You may want to look that stuff up. There's also London syndrome. There's all kinds of crazy things. But I'm touching on Stockholm syndrome and on fawning syndrome just a little bit and how this all relates to our community. If you feel you learned something, great. If you haven't, well, this probably is the place for you. So try to pause it, write down some notes, do a little homework for yourself. Don't take my word for it. I'm the L.S.S.T community advocate and educator. So on your bus ride home today, please stick with me for the next few parts of Stockholm Syndrome and communities because it's going to be very educational. But I'm the L.S.S.T community advocate. Be the change you want to be the change you want to see. Challenge the status quo because if you don't, you never know what you can achieve alone, together, for yourself, or for your community in the long haul. And quite frankly, just change things for the positive. And don't be fooled by those who are in control and are abusive. We all know what toxic people are. Stay away from them. Stay with me for part 2.